How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Patriot DIY channel. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make an engraved two-color wood sign, primarily using the CNC machine. All right, guys, now this is the sign that we're going to be making today. This is kind of an outdoor plaque designed to go at the end of your driveway. And I'm going to go through the whole process with you guys. First, how I made this cedar wood panel. Then we'll talk about actually creating it here on the CNC machine. This is my Shapeoko 5 Pro, and I will have a link to this machine in the description below, along with build plans for this table that it's sitting on, if you want to get that for yourself. Now, we are going to be using the CNC for this project, but if you don't have a CNC, this can be accomplished with just a router by hand. And I do have a full video on how to engrave a wood sign using just a router. I'll put a link to that right here at the top of the screen and in the description below. Then we'll talk about what I think is the best way to paint and finish this. Especially with the two colors, there is a process that I think makes this pretty simple to do. Then once we've done all that, we'll get it installed on the driveway columns. And we're gonna get into all that in just a minute, guys. But first, if you haven't done it yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, hit that notification bell, and give me a thumbs up. All right, guys, so first thing you're gonna need to do is decide what material you're gonna use for your sign, whether it's gonna be indoor or outdoor. Now, mine is for an outdoor application, so I'm using cedar for mine. Cedar is a really nice rot-resistant wood that's great for outdoor applications. So to create my panel, what I did was I got a 1x8 cedar board, and I first cut it down to rough length at the miter saw, and used the table saw to get a nice, clean glue edge. Now I need to join these two pieces together to create my panel. So to make sure I get the alignment just right on that, I'm going to use my Win biscuit joiner to cut biscuit holes into the glue edge of both of my pieces. Then I install my biscuits into one side of those holes, apply a healthy amount of wood glue, and then clamp my two pieces together while that glue cures. Once that's had time to cure, I'm going to go ahead and scrape off any excess wood glue and then sand the panel to make it as flat and smooth as I can. Next, I'm going to cut both my panels down to their final dimension over at the table saw. And to give this plaque a little more character, I'm going to use a 45-degree chamfer bit in my palm router to put a chamfer along the outer edge of the entire piece. Now I'm ready for my base layer of paint. So first I'm going to apply a few coats front and back with a primer. Then I'll go back and paint both panels with 3 coats of my base color satin black. Now I'm just using rattle can paint for this, but this is the first time I have used this Rust-Oleum with the adjustable nozzle for different spray patterns, and I really like this. With this you can get a lot more of a fan, very similar to using a real spray gun. So I did 3 coats of the black, and once that had time to cure, I was ready to mask off the whole panel and prepare for engraving. All right, guys, now this sign is going to be 2 colors with a primary background color, and then we'll have a different color in the engraved letters. Now you can of course get inside all of that small engraving with a paintbrush, and that would work out just fine, but there is an easier option. So first what I'm going to do is go ahead and paint the entire panel black to get that background color. Then I'm going to cover it with a product called Aura Mask. This is just a vinyl mask that we're going to put over the surface before we engrave the letters. This is going to mask off all of that black, and then we can go back and spray paint over top of that to color the letters. And then once we peel off the Aura Mask, we should get some nice crisp lines. Now, along with the Aura Mask, you're also going to need some type of squeegee to apply it, some painter's tape, and then scissors or some type of blade. I'm also going to be using this little weeding tool to weed out the inside of those letters after I paint, and I will have a link to all of these things in the description below. First, I'm going to cut a piece of the Aura Mask just slightly bigger than my panel. Then I'll lay it in place and tape it down the middle. Then I'm going to fold back one side and start to peel off that backing paper. Once I've got it peeled back, I'll cut the backing paper off and then very carefully start to squeegee the Aura mask onto the panel. Once I'm sure I've got it applied well, I can remove the tape and the rest of the backing paper. Then I'll squeegee down the opposite side and then go back over the whole thing to make sure I have good contact to my panel. Now you can use any design software you want to design your signs. I like to use Adobe Illustrator for this, and if you want to get that program, I will have a link to it in the description below. But there are several programs out there, including free ones that you can use, as well as the software that comes along with the Shapeoko 5 Pro called Carbide Create. You can create your design right there in this software. You can also use this software to convert a design that you made in another program and convert it to the file type that you need for the CNC machine. So once I created my design in Adobe Illustrator, I pulled it into Carbide Create, made a few adjustments there. So in here, you're gonna choose what tools and router bits you wanna use. You're gonna choose the depth of the engraving. You're also able to set your feed rate and things like that. And once you're done, you can generate a preview of what it's gonna look like once this is engraved into your workpiece. And we are ready to get started. So I'm gonna pull up Carbide Motion. That's the CNC software for the Shapeoko 5 Pro. I'm gonna set the start point for the project and get my workpiece clamped here on the bed of the machine, and we are ready to get started engraving. This whole piece took just about 20 minutes. The first bit I'm using is a 90-degree V-carve bit that gives a really cool dimension to the letters. And now we just sit back and watch the magic. Now I do have one tool change here because of the width of my letters. I did end up with a little bit of a ridge at the bottom of each of these larger numbers. So I'm gonna go back with an 1/8 inch flat end mill bit that's gonna get down in there and flatten out the bottom of those letters to finish off this sign. And with that, the engraving is finished and I think it looks awesome. Now let's get this back over to the table and get these letters painted. So I'm gonna get all this dust blown out and make sure everything is nice and clean. I'm also gonna tape off all the edges that aren't already covered by the Aura mask. And then we're ready to apply a couple layers of primer down into these engraved areas. Now the color I'm using for this is a metallic silver. I think that's gonna give a really good contrast with the black. So once that primer's had time to dry, I'm gonna go back with 2 coats of this silver spray paint. All right, now after the recommended drying time, I'm ready to peel off this mask and unveil what this sign is actually gonna look like. First, I'll take all this tape off the edges, and then I'll use my weeding tool to start peeling back that Aura mask. And cross your fingers, folks, we're hoping for some nice crisp edges here. Oh yeah, and that is looking really nice. All right, guys, this looks exactly how I hoped it would. I really like that contrast between the black and the silver, and that Aura mask gave us really nice, clean lines on the paint. Now you can see just how easy this process was. I didn't have to worry about trying to get down into those letters with paintbrushes. That Aura mask did a great job. Then I'm gonna finish it off with 3 coats of spar urethane, and when that's dry, I can pre-drill my mounting holes. Now I'm going to let both of these plaques sit and cure for at least 24 hours, and then we're ready to get them outside and get them installed on our driveway columns. All right guys, and we're ready to get our signs installed here on the columns. If you followed the channel for a while, you may remember this project. We built these columns here at the end of my driveway. These look really nice. They've held up great. Now this looks like stone, but it's actually not. This is a faux stone product called Genstone, really DIY friendly. So if you're interested in building some columns like this at the end of your driveway, I do have a full video on how to do this. I'll link to that right here at the top of the screen and in the description below. So we just want to go ahead and find our placement here for the plaque and just eyeballing it. I'm thinking about 6 inches down and centered here in the middle is going to look nice. Now, because this is stacked and not flat stone, I was concerned that the sign may not sit flat. So I was prepared for that, and I cut some of these little standoffs out of some black PVC. If you need to use standoffs, you cut these out like I did and then bore yourself a hole the same diameter as your PVC and inset that and have it stick out just a little bit from the stone to give you a nice flat surface. Now luckily mine appears like it's going to sit nice and flat here in the spot that I've chosen for it, or at least flat enough. You're going to be seeing this from the road, and I think it looks fine, so we're going to go without the standoffs for now. But just keep that in mind if you do need to do that. Now the height of my sign is 10 inches and I want 6 inches from the top. So I'm just gonna measure down 16 inches here to my level and get us a nice level starting point and actually clamp my level to the column to give me somewhere that I can rest my plaque while I'm installing it, and I don't have to worry about trying to hold it perfect while I'm putting those screws in. Now with my level clamped in place, all I need to do is set my plaque up here and get it centered. Now let me first show you the hardware that I'm using. So for this, I'm using some panhead deck screws. You want to make sure you're using an exterior grade screw for this. Now I'm not worried about the color because the other thing that I'm going to use here are these little screw caps. So the way this works is our screw is going to fit through the screw cap like this. Then once we screw it in, we close that cap up and it's going to hide the screw for us. Now I'm just going to take a couple measurements here to verify that I am centered. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and get our first screw installed. I'm not going super tight right away. I'm gonna go ahead and get all 4 screws in first, and then I'll go back and tighten them down. Now, if you remember this column build, the reason I can use just regular screws for this is because behind our faux stone is a wooden base, so I can screw right into that. All right, now with that secured, we can remove the level and we can close off these little screw caps. And I'll just get you in a little closer here so you can see just how cool these little screw caps are. It's just a plastic cap. You just push that, snap it tight, and it hides the screw and matches the rest of our sign perfectly. All right, the last thing I'm going to do here is add some solar lights that are going to mount above the sign and shine down on it at night. I really like these. These are nice and low profile. They're really easy to mount and it should light this up nicely at nighttime. All right, that's it, guys. I think this looks great. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What'd you think about this project? Hopefully this video helped you out, and hopefully this is going to help keep those DoorDash guys from missing my house all the time. Don't forget, guys, that we'll have links to all the tools we use in this video linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.